and welcome to our third session in the Your Turn podcast where we talk about coaching. Today we're going to talk about sales coaching. In other words, how do we coach individual contributors for sales performance? And introduce yourself a little bit to the audience for the people that have not listened yet to the two previous sessions.
Okay, wonderful. And that's why a topic that I'm excited to talk about. I work as an internal leadership coach. I'm also managing in a team that is called Leadership Development within Global Enablement. And my job is to coach leaders, but also something that I've done for quite an extensive period of time is to help leaders to become better coaches for their people. As I work very closely to the sales organization, this is a topic that I found really interesting, and I hope our audience also will benefit from some ideas that I'm going to share with you today.
Great. Looking forward to have a number of topics, as you know, outlined.
Yeah.
And maybe let's first start with the fact that when you coach individual contributors, most of the people that coach those salespeople, they're not coaches themselves. They're managers, they're directors. So how do you, first of all, make sure that the people that give the coaching at least have the basics to do some good coaching?
Okay, and that's a very fundamental question because what I saw at the beginning when I joined this organization is that many sales managers had the belief that they were really good coaches. They really believed that. But then when they met me in training or other trainers that were teaching how to do sales coaching, how to apply the GROW model that is taught in many organizations as an effective way to do performance coaching, they found out through the practice, through the role plays, that they weren't as good as they thought. So, sales managers, as they are very close to the sale, so they are very close to account management, and they work very closely to individual contributors. They have a lot of knowledge, and most of the times they were at some point in their career individual contributors themselves, so they were selling themselves, and maybe they were amazing, and that's why they were promoted at some point into a leadership role. But being really good at selling doesn't mean that you are a good coach then for other individual contributors that are selling. And the biggest mistake, one of the biggest mistakes that I see sales managers do is applying their own methodology, applying their beliefs, applying what they believe worked really well for them to become successful to their team members. So they coach them mostly just sharing best practices. Say, okay, this is what you have to do because this works so well for me, so it's going to work well for you. And unfortunately, never works. So, some tips, of course, and some general best practices about how to, for example, conduct kind of a qualifying conversation or to handle objections. So some of those kind of methodologies might be very helpful because there are well-established kind of frameworks that you can follow. So that's the knowledge piece, and that might be something that the sales manager can teach. Okay, that's the teaching aspect of the sales manager's job. But when it comes to help the person become more independent and more autonomous, more capable, and develop in the role, that doesn't work. Because if the sales manager keeps sharing their tips, their best practices, and keeps giving solutions to the individual contributor, they will come back to you again and again and again, throwing problems at you and expecting you to feed them with the solutions. And then the managers will find themselves overwhelmed and swamped and complaining that they don't have time for anything because they need to solve problems for their people and telling them what to do. And this is the typical, dynamic that happens in so many teams that have not received coaching training and they have not developed a coaching culture. And that expands, from the individual team, throughout an organization like a virus that hinders then the end performance and growth and development of their people.
Yeah, and it's very recognizable, and it's also the fact that if you look at people, as you said, that are high performance, they are being promoted into that
Mhm.
leadership role. Some of them don't even want to stop selling. They want to remain on the front,
Yeah.
and then it becomes very operational. And it is exactly that uh, um, working on those best practices, showing how to do it by doing it yourself, but you don't teach them anything. You don't coach on your existing team. You were speaking about the grow model.
Mhm.
So before we go deeper into the sales executive coaching, let's go a little bit deeper into that developing the leaders into better coaches. What is a typical good program to help the leaders becoming better coaches? And then the second stage, we can maybe go a bit deeper into the grow model.
Okay. Uh, when when an organization is trying to build a coaching culture within, for example, sales, the sales organization within, I mean, a larger organization, that's my
Yes.
experience. It's better to start with a basic training, but that's not the only step that an organization needs to take. So a basic training might be a kind of 2 days or a few hours training, or a few days training. So depending on the resources and the time that the organization is willing to invest to teach the basics of how coaching works and how it should be applied. So it might be, as we said, that grow model that's very easy,
Mm-hmm.
that people understand because it's just a few steps, and how to apply this to specific scenarios. And the scenarios might be, how do I coach somebody that finds difficult to handle objections? So how do I coach somebody that is struggling with performance when it comes to, for example, managing their book of business? So someone that's not generating enough leads, or so whatever the problem is. So translating that framework, it's very simple, of the grow model, and then having people to role play and apply that simple framework to real scenarios,
Yeah.
and receiving feedback in that instance from someone who is the trainer, who is the person who has the expertise that can provide the coaching. Something that I've done many times when I was teaching sales leaders to become better coaches. We taught them the theory, but the theory, as I said, doesn't take that much time. But then we did role plays and we were observing, so the trainers were observing the leaders, and we gave them some scenarios, or they were coming up with scenarios themselves from their day to day. And we were so providing them feedback so they could better understand what was working in their application of the
Mm-hmm.
grow model and what instead wasn't working. And that's, I would say, the first step that an organization need to take.
Yeah.
Then that's not enough, absolutely, because if you have, I mean, even a couple of days training and you learn to practice the grow model, if then you don't practice it on a daily basis, or you don't get feedback from your own leader, you don't hold yourself accountable, you don't get feedback from your uh, team members
Yeah.
on your coaching, then the efforts will just kind of fizzle out after some time. And I've seen it again and again. Leaders are kind of believing, oh yeah, of course, I am such a good coach and I'm able to apply the grow model. Sure, grow model is simple, but then to what extent then you stop yourself when you want to share the answer to what not the person is coming to you with. So the individual contributor comes to you with a challenge, you ask a couple of questions, and then you become impatient. Oh God, I really want to tell them what to do. One of these excuses to not practice coaching.
It's
Look,
recognizable, eh? Because you don't
exactly,
have
and
time.
it's
Yeah.
so widespread. It's time. Okay, I don't know. I don't have time for this. And that's an excuse. It's an excuse of someone that doesn't know how to coach well. So if you don't know how to coach well, you will just get lost into asking irrelevant questions, because the quality of what you're asking and the quality of the conversation is not good, that you find yourself stuck as a sales manager practicing coaching. And I've seen it all the time, managers then getting frustrated because they ask 2, 3, 4 questions and then they don't get to help the person to be clear on the next step. They get frustrated and say, okay, now I'm going to tell you what I would do in this scenario is X, Y, Z. I'll just call the client, I will say this or that, and then you will achieve your goal. And the person will not learn anything from this interaction. That's why an organization needs to keep investing in the practice of coaching. And in one thing that I've not seen used enough, but if it was up to me, I would definitely double down on that, is peer-to-peer coaching. So leaders coaching other leaders and helping each other with their challenges. I've seen this used in other organizations very successful. So you don't have to hire a ton of coaches or professional coaches to help you improve your leaders. So you have just a few that reinforce what the leaders have already learned. But then on the day-to-day challenges, leaders can help each other. They can help each other.
And what do you think about a three-way conversation of which you have the coach and the coachee, and then one of the peers that is observing, then the coach, and then to give feedback? So does something like this work? Do you encourage it?
Yeah, that's very powerful, because you have a third observer, now third-party observer, that can give you that dispassionate feedback about what they observe, so that you realize that maybe you're making some mistakes, or there are things that some questions that you asked that not very effective, and next time you can try something different. So this is what we do in role plays, for example, in training.
Yeah, and we spoke already a couple of times of the GROW model. Maybe you can go briefly into this. How does it look like, and when is it ideally suited? And I use it as well in my coaching. For you, when is it the ideal model for coaching?
So the GROW model was created by Sir John Whitmore a long time ago, probably in the 70s at some point. I don't remember exactly, because I'm not revisiting that.
You're not the historian, huh?
I'm not an historian, exactly. I don't remember, but doesn't really matter. He was considered a pioneer in the field of coaching, and he created this very, very simple model that is still taught to this day in all coaching schools and within most organizations. So the GROW model, it's an acronym that stands for goal, reality, option, and way forward. So it's extremely simple: goal, reality, options, and way forward. And even I think a 5-year-old probably can grasp the concept of the GROW model, because in theory it's extremely simple. So first of all, we start identifying a goal for the coaching session. And in the example of sales coaching, for example, would be a sales manager asking the sales rep to come up with a goal for that conversation. Or the goal could be set by the sales manager, say, okay, can we talk about how you can grow this client by 10% more, and what actions we can consider to grow this client by this much. Okay, so you have a goal for the session. And then R is the reality. So what is the reality? What has this person done thus far to grow this client? What has worked? What has not worked? And then exploring the reality is something that is many times a source of pitfalls. So there are pitfalls that leaders fall into when they coach for reality, because when they ask questions, they sometimes are happy with the first thing or second thing that the sales rep comes up with, and they don't dig deeper, because they think, oh yeah, well, I don't have time to explore what is really going on here. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions and be happy with first couple of things that the rep will say, while the kind of meaty conversation comes from digging deeper. So my invitation is to everybody who's listening, if you want to apply the growth model, spend a little bit more time on the reality, asking questions about what is really going on. Because maybe superficially the rep might say, oh yeah, I've now contacted the client, I had this conversation, and I'm not able to reach out to the decision maker, but I've spoken with this and that person, and I've made this much progress. Is that enough information? I don't think it's enough. I don't have enough information for me to be able to understand why this client has not been grown by much more. So I don't understand. So I just have that bit of information that, okay, I've not been able to speak with the decision maker, which might be a reason, but there might be something else going on there. Yeah. So I need to ask more probing questions, going a little bit deeper, gather more information so that I'm able to really understand what can be done. Okay, so I find out maybe that the problem is not that they have not spoken with the decision maker, that the rep has not been able to take that step, but the problem is that this company is going through a crisis, and that they are shrinking their marketing budget, so they are not able to allocate any additional budget. But there might be then the option of finding budget maybe through another department, not marketing, but maybe somewhere else there's additional budget that we can tap into. So that's the next step. After exploring the reality, we explore the options. So what are the options? What are the possibilities, right? What are the people that maybe you can get in touch with? What are the questions that we haven't asked yet? What are the information that we might get from another conversation with the client that will help us to make progress on this account? And this is another place where there are a lot of pitfalls for sales managers coaching reps, because we believe we don't have enough time, we stop to option 1 and option 2, and maybe the rep comes up with option 1 and the sales manager is tempted to come up with option 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So you are not challenging the person, you're not challenging the rep enough to come up with more ideas on how we can grow this client. And I'm just telling you what to do. And this is another step. So the options where leaders need to pay a lot of attention and be patient and ask the rep, what else, even 10 times if you have to. So you help them to think, you help them to come up with solutions, because next time, if you provide them with the solutions, you give them what they need, what they're looking for, they will never learn. So you will find yourself really busy coming up with options while they will be relaxed and just picking up the phone and then winning the sale for you.
One ear in, the other out.
Yeah, exactly. So please keep challenging them and help them to think for themselves. And the last step is the way forward. The way forward, it's very important. And many leaders here, again, they don't remember that's important, not just to agree on what the rep is going to do next, which is all about agreeing on what is the action or the actions that the rep will take after having this conversation, but it's about the follow through. So how do I ensure that you will hold yourself accountable to do what we agreed that you will do? So when are we going to talk again about this matter? It's going to be next week in our one-to-one. So please be specific to agree on a time and a date and how we're going to have this conversation again about this challenge.
Yeah, great. Thank you for explaining this in so much detail. It's very useful. And now we are segueing into the the coaching the individual contributors, because we spoke already a couple of times about time, lack of time. As a sales manager,
Hmm.
you have a tons of things to do. Your
Yeah.
number, um, training your people, making sure that the follow through happens, and coaching them. So when I was having the one to ones, I usually separated my one to ones into an individual aspect, the numbers aspect, and then coaching.
Hmm.
However, when you have a weekly one to one, it means in 1 hour, 20, 30 minutes of coaching. And that was often not enough. And then it leads to situations that you described. Oh, no, we don't have time. We have 5 minutes left. I'm going to tell you the solution. At the same time, we have often from senior leadership, from management, some aspects to coach on as well. So we see on the ground where we should coach people on, and at the same time, we have an agenda calendar with coaching topics to work on as well. So it leads us to even less time. So when we look at building up that coaching cadence, can you tell us some best practices?
I acknowledge the fact that this is a challenge, especially in small companies, but in all sales organizations, lack of time. We don't have enough time. We have these one-to-ones, and maybe you have a sales manager and you have 10 or more people reporting into that same sales manager. So it is a reality that it's not easy to find time to coach. At the same time, the way I see coaching and the way when I was teaching to sales managers coaching is to think of coaching as an investment, not a waste of time. You're investing in that person to make them more independent so that next time they will be able to solve that challenge for themselves. So you might be investing at the beginning some time in them and carving out time for them specifically to coach them, but then they won't come back again and again with the same challenge about how do I handle objections of this kind, or how do I pitch this product to this client. Well, you know it. So you know how to coach yourself once you have experienced coaching multiple times. So you become a better problem solver. So I would say invest that time at the beginning, even if it's hard, take some time. And if you can, even outside of the one to one, don't coach maybe during the one to one, those 10 minutes in the end, unless you're very skilled already as a coach and you know how to ask very laser focused questions so that you can complete a full grow process in 10, 15 minutes. And that's possible, right? If you're very experienced. Take some time outside. I remember when I was working at Google, then in the small business organization, they believed in the power of coaching so much that they dedicated specific sessions to coaching individuals. So beyond one-to-ones, they maybe had shorter one-to-ones, but they had maybe half an hour coaching every week or every 2 weeks, where it was only coaching. So there wasn't anything else. The person was bringing a topic about kind of developing a skill or working through their maybe book of business, whatever it was. But it was just coaching. There wasn't anything else. And a very clear, open, honest agreement between the coachee, so between the sales rep and the sales manager about the goal of the session. So coaching was not something that was done by the sales manager to the person, which is another kind of big mistake that happens in an organization whereby people start resisting because they feel that, oh, the manager is doing something to me,
Yeah.
while it's a process that we're engaging in together that will help us to be better, that will help us to achieve our business goals.
And also, as an external coach, I have encountered that people think because I am an external, I will give coaching, that I will assess them and then help them deciding on the future of their career. So
Mm-hmm.
also there, the managing expectations is very important. Why we have coaching and what are we going to do then those couple of sessions. And when we look into this, if you look at the time that a first time manager only has, would you say maybe then a good way to work with this is having new salespeople? We work on the skills, on the technical skills, on the pure sales skills. And then with the more experienced people, we're going to go more into coaching for different types of skill sets, or how would you see it?
That's another very important point, and it's something that we used to teach in our um, uh, Indeed sales coaching program some time ago, but we still teach it. And it's about determining what the person needs depending on where they are at in their career development journey, and also their own role development, so development in their role, to say it better. So for example, if someone joined the team and they are new to the company, they might need a more directive approach. So they might need someone that can teach them how to do their job first. So they need the foundations. So there won't be that much space for coaching, even though coaching is a tool. So it's something that if you want to kind of check in on their knowledge, for example, so they are learning about new product, for example, you want to check in on their knowledge, it's better instead of kind of interrogate them, and then it's just better that you ask a question like, oh, so what have you learned about this product? So tell me. So if you had to describe it to somebody that is 5 years old, for example, how would you do that? So just using a coaching approach instead of just having a full 1 hour conversation with the person, because the priority when someone is new to the business, is new to the team, is teaching them what their role is about, what the expectations are. And so they need to have the knowledge of the business, of the products, and the expectations of the role, first of all. But nothing stops the leader from using a coaching approach and start to help the person to think for themselves instead of simply just doing a kind of a knowledge check, which is also important. With top performers or with somebody that has been already in the role for quite a long time, then coaching is the best way of helping them to keep developing their role, keeping them engaged with their role, because you can set together specific developmental objectives and growing together through this journey and using this process. You can also help the person has been in the role for quite a long time, the most senior member of the team, to use coaching as a tool for themselves. So it becomes kind of self-coaching. They ask themselves questions, and you can also use peer-to-peer coaching again, so that you encourage people to coach each other through the challenges that they face.
Great, thank you. Very useful. And what is one useful tip that you can give today for, let me say, companies that are just on their journey? They exist a couple of years, maybe they have their first 5, 6, 7 salespeople. They don't have any real coaching culture yet. So, on an individual contributor side, what would be the first thing then that you would be working on?
For individual contributors, I would so with their manager, I would work on a kind of team level to create a small sized coaching culture within that team to get people curious about using that tool. I mean, not forcing anyone to kind of just follow that kind of role model of that process, but start to kind of familiarize themselves, for example, with I know a grow cheat sheet with grow questions, and then having everyone to get into the habit of keeping that close to their computer, so that when they find themselves stuck, they can take a look at those questions and start kind of using them to spark some thoughts. And then using maybe those questions with each other and the manager with them. So it becomes part of how we do things here, which is another definition for culture. So how we do things here is asking ourselves some questions and start being curious about possibilities instead of trying to find someone that tells you exactly what to do in that scenario.
Yeah, love it. Thank you. Great tip, Linda. And a final question: where can people that are interested in knowing more about you and have maybe some more coaching questions, where they can contact you?
So there are two main ways. One is my website, lindascotti.com. And the other way that's easiest probably for most people is through LinkedIn, because I'm on LinkedIn. I have there my profile, and you can find me there.
Perfect. Thank you much. And with this, we finish the third and final session. And I really had a blast, learned a lot from you, despite I knew you
Likewise.
already. Thank you very much, and looking forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Cedric.
Bye bye.
Bye.